Hey, this is Matthew from Nerd News Today, and joining me on the other side of the screen, we've got Christopher Sebala, who you might know from Crowded. Chris, how's it going today?
All right, how are you?
Not too bad. I love how your setup is looking way more professional than mine is right now. You've got like a all this cool stuff for your mic, and I have none of that.
Yeah, it's the only professional thing I have. I don't know. I just got it to do like podcasts, and I don't use it for any other reason. But I'm very fancy when I need.
Well, it definitely looks really, really nice. I need to get one of those for myself now. We're here to talk about Crowded. That's put out by Image Comics. You guys just got issue 12 released. So now the second arc has completed. We've got a lot to talk about. But first things first, want to let people know this is going to probably be very spoiler heavy, but for those who don't know what the heck we're talking about, Chris, can you give us kind of the elevator pitch for what Crowded is all about?
Crowded, we say, takes place quote unquote 10 minutes in the future, but it's basically a world not too unlike our own, except everything kind of runs on the gig economy. So everybody's working for Uber and Lyft and Postmates and stuff like that. But there's also an app called Reaper where which is basically Kickstarter for assassinations. So you can kill, a politician, an actor, somebody like that, or just your next door neighbor or your ex or a dude who cut you off in traffic. So our story is about Charlie, who she wakes up one morning and has $1 million Reaper on her head on the first day. And so she hires the only bodyguard who will take her case from this Uber for Bodyguards app, and her name is Vita, and the two of them have to survive for the next 30 days until the campaign's over.
It's been a lot of fun. It's been a really interesting read so far. So I want to ask about the environment that the comic takes place in, because it's a very scarcity and commodity-driven world that we have here in Crowded. It's also where everything's crowdsourced, essentially. Why was that such an integral part of this story to tell Crowded, and do you think this comic would have the same impact it's had if it was set more like in a world where we have today, where it's not quite at the level of Crowded just yet?
Yeah, I don't know. I was just, I initially just had the idea about a Kickstarter for assassinations, and I knew it was good, but it needed more. So yeah, mostly it was just trying to figure out a world where something like that would show up and it would kind of make sense to people. So I think establishing it as a world that's like ours, except worse, I guess, basically, where, some people are picking up like side jobs, driving for Lyft or something, and just taking it to the extreme where like now everybody just works for apps, and you have to do, 15 different jobs to keep your head above water. I don't know. I think a lot of it also has to do with the fact that I've been a freelancer for over a decade. So like the whole like hustle culture has been part of my life for way too long. And it just felt like something we could mine for good drama or content or whatever.
So as I mentioned, we're up to issue 12 now. This is the end of the second arc. So again, spoiler alert for everybody. We're going to talk potentially some spoilers here. So a lot of things have happened between Charlie, between Vita. We've got some other characters we have now. Cersei has inserted herself in the story officially in a much bigger way. So by the end of this next arc, and obviously I know you can't say much or give too many spoilers away for the future, but whose story do you think is going to shock us the most by the time we get to issue 18?
Man, I don't know. I don't know that anybody's going to shock anybody. Like, yeah, I don't know. We've just been setting up all these pieces basically, and I don't know that anybody can picture what the third arc is besides myself and the rest of the team. But like, we're taking it in a much different direction, sort of. But it's still Yeah, I don't know. I'm terrible at talking about this. Like, I've written 4 of the 6 issues of arc 3. So yeah, anything I want to say would just be spoilery, but it's about it's I guess more equally about Vita and Charlie in arc 3. Like, I don't know, that we've gone through periods where it's been very Charlie heavy and very Vita heavy, and I guess the end of the second arc was us trying to get it to a place where they were both kind of on the same ground. as it were. And now that we've done that and then completely threw a monkey wrench into it, now it's time to see like how everybody picks up the pieces from the end of arc 2.
Yeah, I do like how every issue has kind of been a surprise in a lot of ways, trying to figure out what's going to happen next, where they're going to go, and also still kind of building the world that they live in. So I do have a question, and again, I don't know how much you can really say or not say, but
Sure.
of some of the recurring characters we've seen in past issues, is there any chance of any of them show up again in a big way, besides from who we saw at the very last page of issue 12?
Yeah, no, I mean, there's definitely people who come back. Yeah, again, like I feel like it would wreck anything if I mentioned specifics, but like we're not doing it as like I don't know, as like a final tour or something where it's like let's bring everybody possible onto the stage. Like we've been setting things up tactically, so like if you go back and read it, like I think you could see who are characters who might come back, and probably your instincts on that are close to right. I mean, we don't have a ton, so you don't have a bunch to choose from, but yeah, we definitely want to. I don't know. I like bringing things full circle, and I like, I don't just want to like here was this character, and now we're never going to hear from them again. Like I feel like, you know, at this point we feel very close to all our characters, even the ones who just show up for an issue or two. So, um, yeah, I think I made a list basically when I started right before I even wrote arc 3, and it was a list of like, okay, this is your last chance to write this book, so like what do you want to do? So I just wrote myself a long freehand list of like all the stuff I would love to do, and then I tried to figure out a way to make all that stuff possible.
So since you kind of mentioned a little bit of your creative process, I'm kind of curious about how you write your comics now, especially with something like Crowded, where it does have a starting point and a clear end point. Do you have like a long-term outline that's already written that you're adhering to very strictly, or do you have kind of like a more loose outline that you're kind of improvising as you go along?
It's definitely looser. Like we had to I wrote up a complete outline for Rebel Wilson when I went to meet with her and our screenwriter to talk about the movie. So that was a big thing they wanted, was like, can you just write out the arc of the whole book? Which was, I'm glad they did it, because I'm not good at preparing that much that far away. Like it would be something I would start, closer to actually writing it, but they wanted everything, so I sat down and broke it all down. So I have a rough map, but we've deviated a lot from it ever since I wrote that. Like I like to have outlines to keep me on the straight and narrow when I get lost or confused, or just like something isn't working for me. It's nice to have that to refer back to, but I never let it decide things for me. Like if in the process of writing it I've decided like I think this works a lot better, then I'm more than happy to throw out a part of an outline and figure out, all right, how do I stitch this new part into all the old parts? So yeah, I just kind of, I have a rough idea when I go into each issue what it's going to be, and then it changes several times in the writing of it, and I put, stuff comes up that I've never even thought about before. So it's structured but improvisational, I guess.
This is something I've actually just wondered in general for Crowded, and
Mm-hmm.
that's why you chose the word Crowded as the title of the comic, because you could have gone with some things that are more in the nose, in terms of really what the overarching story in my mind is, which is the hunt for Charlie. So why did you go with the term Crowded to be the title of this book?
Um, Honestly, it's like when you're trying to come up with titles, either you come up with something right away and it just fits, or you struggle forever to figure one out. And Crowded was like the first thing I wrote down, and I think just because it gives more of a vibe of stuff than like says precisely on the nose what this book is. So it's crowded to me, at least as an introvert who doesn't like to be around a ton of people. Like crowded is like that's a bad word for me. Like I don't want, like even just going to comic conventions is like I really have to steel myself. So for me, like it definitely summoned up an ominous vibe. And yeah, I don't know. It just kind of, I think it felt right for the future, even if I hadn't figured out what that world was. Like it just feels like in all our dystopia that we watch and consume, like the future is always a lot more crowded than um yeah, it was either that or we were going to do crowdfund dead, uh which was like was cute, but also it was just like it was just really long. That many syllables is like troublesome. And I think we were going to use parentheses at one point, and I already did that on Welcome Back, so I didn't want to go back to that well again.
Well, I do really enjoy the title Crowded, though. It really is pretty perfect when you actually read the book, and it gives you a real good sense of the world everybody's in, because it is a pretty crowded world in a lot of ways, not just physically with that amount of people, but just even mentally. There's kind of a mental state of just crowding an overbearing amount of people doing all these things for themselves, essentially.
Yeah, and Ted and Row, like when they do page, like they do really dense pages, so yeah, it just seemed to, in retrospect, it fit perfectly because we are a very, I write a lot of dialogue. They pack a page with lots of panels. Like our every issue of our book is crowded too, just by lettering balloons and panels. So like, yeah, it just kind of worked out as a perfect thing.
And I really do like the artwork as well, which is by Rose Stein, Ted Brandt. And I'm actually curious about one of those things too, because I've really appreciated the action sequences that they do. So I'm kind of curious how
Mhm.
you guys work together as a team to make those happen. Like, do you give them notes? Do you give them outlines of what you want to see paginated? Or do you kind of just let Roe and Ted do what they want as they build up their gunfights and all these car chases you guys do?
Like I write out all my action scenes and I break them down panel by panel, but I've told Roe and Ted from the beginning, like this is just how I see it, and please throw it all out if you figure out a better way to do it. So so yeah, I just can't like give my collaborators a script that's just like, I think this happens, but I don't know how. Like, it just feels incomplete to me. So I feel like it's part of my job to at least logistically try and think about how does this actually work. I get too hung up on logic sometimes, and especially for like fight scene stuff. Like I want to make sure that like the stuff tracks, that it's not just like here's a big crazy scene. It has and like just like defying the laws of physics and gravity. Like I want to make sure that I am aware of the space so I can write things better. But yeah, ultimately Ted and Row look at what I've given them and decide if they can do it or they can do it better than what I gave them. It's a very, we don't even really talk about it more anymore. Like just like I will give them a page of script and it'll come back as a completely different page art wise and always for the better. So I try not to mess with that process because it's working pretty well.
Something I wanted to ask actually was about the characters in the series. Are any of them based on anybody you know in real life?
Not specifically. I there are definitely I know a lot of Charlies. I think everybody does. And also like I'm just used to. I have this weird dynamic where I have these friendships where like the basis of it is sort of constantly needling each other. And it's like we're good friends, but also like it sort of gives you a license to screw with the other person and kind of poke at them more than you would just somebody you weren't that close to. So Charlie very much comes from that dynamic of like just like, oh, you're the worst person ever, and like I still like you, but like you just drive me crazy. Vita's more from whole cloth, I guess, though there's a lot of like things in Vita that I've never like I don't know. I feel like I'm getting all my stuff from people that I know, but like it's never a one to one comparison of like this person is definitely going to be based on this person. It's just it becomes like a quilt of like, well, I patched in this part from this friend I know and from someone over here. Like for Vita, I actually asked Vita Ayala, the writer, if I could use her name for Vita, just because I think it's a really cool name. So so even that was just like I was like, and there's something about Vita, the human being, that I feel like comes through in Vita, the character. So yeah, I try not to. I would never like be like I am literally writing this person into a book. Um, but I think friends of mine could read some of my stuff and see parts of themselves in there. I just try to make it, broad enough that like nobody's gonna feel like I've betrayed confidences or, painted them in an unflattering light.
Well, so that's the human characters, but I want to know how much of Dog is based on your dog.
Oh, not none at all, really. I created dog before I had my dog, so um, and I don't like tiny dogs. Like I like a dog that like can beat you up if it wants to. So I don't like tiny yappy dogs, but it just I don't know something about it. Just I don't even know if I picked the dog. I think I just wrote it into the script, and I think I wrote it as a tiny dog just because. Uh, Action wise, it's a lot easier to move with a dog you can just shove into a bag. So I think really those were my prerequisites. And then Ro and Ted kind of created Dog as he is. And, I didn't even plan for Dog to exist. It was literally while I was writing that page in issue 1 that I was like, oh, Charlie should grab the dog. And then we'll have a dog in this book. And I was like, I'll figure out what to do with the dog. Like, luckily, you don't really have to do that because, like, it's like, what do I do with my dog? It's like nothing. Like, I take my dog for a walk and then my dog sleeps. Like, so I don't know. That was at the stage where I was still like, I just want a dog, and it's like, well, I can't have a dog, so I'm just gonna put dogs in all my comics. Um, so yeah, I think the only like draw through from my dog is like I call my dog Ding Dong a lot, and Vita calls dog Ding Dong. So that's about the closest.
Now, we kind of mentioned before a little bit about your planning process and outline of the story. I don't know if you really have this in the back of your head yet, but do you have like a definite ending point to the comic? Like, do you think there's a number of issues this is going to go and then it's finally over?
Yeah, the next arc is the third and final. So, there was a time where in my head I was like, we could do 5 arcs of this. And then I remember talking with Ro and Ted, and like they really like pour themselves into this book, and they were just like, like this is a lot of work. So I was like, well, maybe 5 is pushing it. Maybe we should go for 4. Um, and then 4 felt okay, but it still felt a little overstuffed. So once I figured out how to boil down the stuff I wanted to do into 3, like that just felt a lot tighter and cleaner. Like there's a case to be made for like, oh, you could tell this forever. You could tell this for, 30 issues, but one, it's, dictated by the market. And pretty much once a book like is out of like that first couple issue stages, then your sales just start dropping unless you're a huge success like Walking Dead or Saga or something. So it's a financial concern, but also just like once I had to make the decision of like, what if we did it as 3? Everything felt a lot tighter and cleaner. And it's not too much of a commitment for somebody stumbling across our book to be like, yeah, we tell the whole thing in 3 volumes, like instead of like somebody who's like somebody who's like wandering in the saga right now is like, yeah, we have 9 volumes out so far and we're not done yet. Like it's a lot to ask. I don't know. Yeah, like it's a world I would love to hang out in forever because I feel like there are other stories in the crowded verse that we could tell, but we also don't want anybody to get sick of us. I mean, there are a lot of people who are already like sick of Charlie and want her dead, who are fans of the book. So yeah, there's only like so long you can hang out with certain people before they'll just like completely turn you off. So all those things and more are like why we're going to 3 arcs.
Well, she is a pretty fun protagonist because she kind of is an antagonizing protagonist in a lot of ways. We're still basically trying to find her redeeming qualities in a lot of ways, which is fun.
Yeah, and I like, I like people like that. I am a person like that. Like sometimes, despite all my best intentions, I can be really annoying and obnoxious. And I feel like all of us can. And Charlie is just that, with no, like that's her raison d'etre. I guess is like to be an irritant is to not that's not her goal, but like she's just trying to live her life, but like as a result she just rubs everybody this weird way. And I like characters that like you're not sure, you're like, I like you, but also like I really hate you sometimes. Like it just feels more human and alive to me, because I feel that way about friends of mine sometimes. Is like, yeah, I love you, but also please go away, and I don't want to talk to you for like a week or two.
So you mentioned this is the final arc. Is this planned to be just another 6 issues as well, or are you going to be going maybe a
Yeah,
little bit more? Another six, okay.
yeah.
I mean, to be fair, it does lend itself very much to cinematic qualities. It really has a 3-act structure here, which is really nice. That brings back something you mentioned as well, which is the fact that Rebel Wilson optioned this for a movie back in 2018, which is exciting. Must be crazy for you.
Mhm.
Can you give us any
Yeah.
updates? I'm sure there's a lot of NDAs that have been signed here, but can you give us any updates on how things are moving along, or if they're moving along?
Yeah, no, they're currently moving into a certain stage. We Rebel hired a screenwriter who wrote the script, and then I read the script, which was super weird. Like I've never read an adaptation of my writing. I don't know how I ever would, but yeah, like they gave me a physical copy of the script. They didn't want me to have a digital one because they didn't want it spread around. So I had it with me, and I was going to meet my editor in San Diego for SDCC last year because we were going to the Eisners. And so I brought it with me just to show to her. And then I was in the airport the next day flying back home and was just kind of bored. And I pulled the script out and I was like, all right. Like, I guess I should read this at some point. And it was actually really good. Like I was shocked by how much I liked it and how well I thought it translated. So yeah, no, now we're in a stage. We're in a promising stage right now. So that's about the most I can say. But yeah, everybody's still super excited about it, and like it's all pie in the sky until something is signed. So it's a nice fantasy to keep while you're doing your thing. But like if it never happens, that's fine. Um, we set out to do the book, and we're gonna wind up doing the book as best we can. And like if there's a movie, awesome. Of course, I would never say no to that. But if there's not, and like this was just like that's how most of these things go, is like somebody will option your thing and then eventually decide like, oh, there's no way we can do this. So yeah, even if that's what happens, like it's still been a very weird ride, like getting flown out to Hollywood to meet with Rebel Wilson. Um like I felt like I was like, oh, I understand what it's like to be like a Hollywood douchebag. It's like it was pretty exciting. So yeah, I'm just like any news I get is good news, and yeah, I'm trying not to let it phase me until it becomes a bit more real.
Well, I'm kind of curious. The fact that you got to meet Rebel Wilson, which is pretty amazing into itself. What is she like? What was that first time meeting her like?
It was really like casual. I talked to her on the phone when she was talking about optioning it, and she was cool on the phone. Like, I think like I made it a point to bring up how much I like the movie Pain and Gain. Not sure why, but like I do really love that movie. And like I don't know. Maybe I was like testing her or something to see like, well, how do you react when people say stupid stuff like this to you that they probably say all the time? And she was super cool about it. Said that like Michael Bay named his dog after her. Um, like he named his dog Rebel. So, but yeah, no, it was just like we met in a conference room at my agent's office, and it was me, her, the screenwriter, and my buddy who's like helping wrangle all this, and we just like talked it out, and it was clear that like she was referring to stuff in the book, and she didn't have like something open in front of her that she was referring to, like, so it was clear that she had read it and like enough to absorb story details, and like she had like deeper questions about stuff, like she really wanted to know why Vita and Joe, her ex, broke up. So like she was just really honestly really invested in the book, which was like, which is why I say like even if nothing happens, like it's nice to have like somebody of that stature who like read your thing, likes your thing, and clearly isn't just like, I would like to collect this as like part of my portfolio. That like maybe I feel like a lot of places treat options as like investment portfolios, and it's like maybe we can do something with this one day, maybe not. And like she put her own money down, like she invested personally into us and the book. So yeah, no, it was super cool and casual. Like it was, maybe like an hour or 90 minutes. And then I immediately like went and caught a cab back to the Burbank airport and flew back home. Like it was I've never done a trip where it's like I fly in the morning, do something, and then fly back that night. Like,
That's a very LA thing to do.
yeah, no, I felt like, oh, cool. Like even if nothing happens, like I've had this experience. So.
Well, I think Crowded really does lend itself to a movie adaptation really perfectly, especially now knowing that we're going to be near the end game very soon here. So let's just pretend for a minute, this is going all the distance.
Sure.
The producers come back to you and they say, we're ready to start casting. Do you have any ideas who you'd want to see play these parts? So, in your mind, have you like scouted anybody to play these parts?
No, not really. Like I'm not sure what Rebel's take is on it currently. I know at one point she was interested in playing Charlie, um, which I could totally see. I don't know. I haven't really. I think the closest I got was like for Vita. I was thinking either like Tessa Thompson, just because like that would be the only way I would ever meet Tessa Thompson. So, or I can't remember her name, but the actress from The Good Place. There's an Indian actress in it. I can't. Her name's like Jamila something. I can't remember, but she's one of the four main. So maybe her. I don't know. Yeah, I try not to think about that just because I don't know. Again, it's like weird fantasizing that like I try to. I try not to fantasize as much. I mean, that's my job. So I try not to let it bleed into like my actual life. Like it's just like I don't care. Like whoever they get, like they could get Andy Milonakis, uh, or someone terrible in like I don't care. Like if they make it into a movie, that would be super cool. So even if it was the worst movie ever made, I'd be super into it.
I want to see Steve Buscemi as Charlie. That's what I want.
Who?
Steve Buscemi.
That's fair. We can try to make that happen. Nothing's off the table right now.
So, as we're recording this interview right now, the world is going crazy. We've got the whole coronavirus thing happening, and we're all quarantined. We're all locked into our homes right now, looking for things to do. So, Chris, what are your top 3 picks at this very moment that you would want our fans to read in terms of comic books? So, in other words, pick 3 comics that our fans might not know about that you would suggest them to check out.
Well, I am halfway through reading Thumbs by Sean Lewis and Hayden Sherman, which just came out as a trade from Image, which is it's a future-y book too, completely different from ours. But Hayden, I think, is like one of the best new artists to come around. Just kind of an amazing sort of powerhouse. So literally anything he does, I pick up. And I like their last book together, which was The Few, which was also at Image. I just read Bury the Lead, which was like an OGN out from Boom that Claire Rowe illustrated, which is sort of a one and done kind of detective book. It was just like, I don't know, it was super odd. I never expected a place like Boom to put a book like that out. It feels very different from a lot of the stuff they usually do. And it was exciting just as like I think just like thinking about comics as a whole, that like we're at a point now where like you can just put together like a self-contained story that like has no superheroes, nothing. It's just like a sort of crime journalism drama, and get it out there alongside like completely ridiculous books. I don't know. I really liked it. And Claire is one of my favorite artists. So have you guys ever read Watchmen? It's really good.
Never heard of it before. What's that about?
Oh, it's about some dudes who watch stuff.
I heard it's got a lot of blue penises in it.
It does, more than your average comic. Your average comic only has like one blue penis, and this has like 6.
Oh, nice.
Let's see. Yeah, it was supposed to come out this month, but Tyler Boss's new book, Dead Dog's Bite, coming out from Dark Horse. I got to read the first 2 issues of it. It's so good. Like, he's writing and drawing. He's doing everything, and it's frustrating how good it is, because it's just like, man, like I want to work with Tyler a lot, and then I read something like that, and it's like, oh, you don't need anybody. Like, you can just like go off and make your own comic. You don't need a writer at all. And it's so good. It's like, this is like his first published thing that he's written. And it's like, that's not fair. Like, I had to publish a lot of garbage before I got something good out. I don't know. It's very frustrating. Whenever that comes out, though, I feel like everybody should check that out, because it's just completely different from anything else in comics right now.
All right, very cool. Yeah, I'm going to check some of those out. Those actually sound really pretty good. And this whole Watchmen thing, I never heard it before. I got to really look that up too. But besides that, for viewers out there who want to follow you on the social media, Instagrams, all those things, how can they find you?
I'm on mostly on Twitter, and I'm at xtop, XTOP. That's also my handle on Instagram, which I use seldom to infrequently. And then my website is just ChristopherSebala.com. So Twitter is probably the best place. It's the only real thing I use on an active basis. And I post a lot of photos of my dog. So even if you don't like my material, you'll like pictures of my dog.
Well, luckily, we all do like Crowded, and I'm sure people who are watching this do too, because if they don't like it, I have no idea why they're watching this. But so last thing before we wrap everything up here, since, again, we are coming to the close of the series, 18 issues, start to finish, are you happy with how Crowded has turned out? Would you do anything differently?
No, it's... No, I wouldn't. No, it feels like it's a book that like feels pretty perfect to me. It's so much better than what I conceived of. Yeah, I don't know. I spent so long sitting with this book and this idea that I was convinced somebody was going to do it before I got a chance to assemble a team. And then I was lucky enough to get Ted and Ro and Triona and Cardinal and just like put this dream team together, and just like, even if I wasn't making Crowded, I would be reading Crowded, because it's just so it's so my thing. Yeah, I have zero complaints about Crowded. Like, maybe like all the piracy surrounding it is not cool. I would complain about that, but also like kind of a compliment, I guess, that like 100,000 people want to steal our book. So, yeah, no, it's been perfect. Like, it's, like sometimes you do a book and it turns out like not as great as you were hoping. And sometimes you're just doing a thing, and while you're doing it, it's like, oh, I'm going to remember this like forever. Like, and this is going to be like a book of mine that I actually pick up and read. Like, which there's a lot of my stuff that I've written that I'm just like, man, I'm not interested in revisiting that. But like Crowded is very much like, yeah, like I'm so proud of it and everything we've been able to do on it. So yeah, wouldn't change a thing.
All right, well, I'm really enjoying the ride. I'm sad to see it go, but if it's going to go, I'm sure it's going to go out in a big way. So,
oh yeah,
I can't wait.
We're doing the final arc as a trade paperback. So ideally, our goal is to have it out by the end of the year. But life being what it is, who knows? But we're working on it now, so we're not taking any huge breaks. We're just going to barrel through and try and get this final arc done and have it for people as soon as humanly possible.
All right, well, I cannot wait. So, Christopher, thank you so much for your time today. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me.